Welcome to Ren Diaries week 6. How excited. These weeks are like going so fast, and little potato is like a gigantic chicken nugget at the moment. So we will continue onwards. We're obviously out and about. I'm trying to do the most smoothest slow-mo ever, as you can see, utter fail. But we're going out to do a sunrise photo shoot, and obviously because it says, we missed sunrise yet again. And therefore, we were actually in the forest with little baby Ren Bear to see how she deals with this log. Now, you guys have seen this log like a bazillion trillion times. This is the OG log, the money tree, as some people did dub it. And it was really, really cold on this morning. It was actually frozen everywhere. It was Baltic, absolute ice cubes, no rain or snow or any form of water falling from the sky, but we were just frozen. Little Ren actually is quite temperature resistant now, which is quite good. And all we're doing in this clip here is just seeing if she's happy to climb around on the log, to explore in the forest floor, because it's a really messy floor. So we do need to be careful from all of the protruding sticks and branches. But if you've not already, you're going to want to go and watch Ren Diaries week 1, which has a 6 or 7 minute introduction to Ren and exactly why you should not go ahead and get this breed of dog. So just following on with the request from quite a lot of the community to keep reiterating that fact that this breed of dog is not for the faint of heart. Don't be an idiot. Don't do this to yourself, your family, your household, or the poor little poppet that is involved in the middle. So she is just sort of doing some little bits of steps. You can see how cold it is because you can see my breath coming behind my head. The wind was just like icicles, and Dan's like, Jess, what do you want me to do? Can't do it. So simplified things a little bit more. She did eventually would be quite happy jumping over the log, going up and standing on it. Dan had to just support, or she lost her balance when she was eating some snacks, but then she got her balance fairly well, and she was quite happy to run around, jump on me, and basically be crazy legend that she always is. So things that we've worked on to build up to this moment are basically off-leash things, recall. I did leave her collar on because this is the first time she's been off-leash out and about since she's got a little bit more independent. So look at her, she's so cute. She was doing some stand weights. You can see she was just like, I'm not sure about staying here by myself, a little leg wobbles, and a couple of bits where actually, you know what, she's not super secure on that. She doesn't have the balance yet, so let's go ahead and simplify. We also had the sunshine, which had very much made an appearance, which made shooting right at the top of that log just an absolute no-go. We were too late, unfortunately, on this occasion, but as a good example, this is exactly what this forest looks like when we're in it. It's a really thin strip, lots of wide open spaces behind, and this was the angle that I thought we'd give it a go. I've not shot this strip ever before. I've shot this log loads of different directions, but not this particular one. So this was just more of a test, and we'll just see kind of what we end up with. And actually, I was really happy with how it appeared. I wanted to move a bit further away so that I could get a longer focal length in. You can see that Ren was watching people on the track behind, watching me, and she recalled really well back to Dan. So although most people would miss those little things and these little sort of stand weights and stuff, most people would miss those, but for me, they're really important. And I'm going on my method of getting your attention, which is to kick my feet. And that works really nicely. And I thought the little picture that we got there was super cute. It wasn't actually the best one of the set, but we're just trying to avoid those really bright bits of sunshine. And then because we've got it, here's some uber slow-mo of little Ren being like, where's my snacks? Can I have more snacks, please? Thank you, and bye-bye. So that's her looking at my feet wiggling, and then back to Dan for where the snack is, reward, and then off we go. And then there was this bit where I managed to catch it on film of her coming towards me, and then Dan recalled her, and it was an immediate spin and a replacement back to him, and I was so happy with that. She did really, really well, and I was really impressed with her. So we went up to the track. You can see this dog, walking away in the distance, and I just thought we'd do some little bit. She's already kind of finished at this stage because,
You're dropping things.
Thanks, Dan, for picking up the fact that I dropped something. Really appreciate that. But it was more a case of just seeing, can I keep her engagement a little bit? Do we think we could do any sort of basic behaviours, anything really, really, really simple at this stage? and she was really good. She tried really hard. She wasn't ever in a situation where I felt like I'd kind of lost her. And although it got a bit tricky towards the end as she got more and more full with all of her breakfast, which is what we're taking out with us at this occasion, there was never really a bit where I was that worried. So she's just coming along really well right now, and I think she's doing great. So based on where we've gotten from week 1, I'm really happy. I shouldn't have done that. So I stepped into it. I shouldn't have done that. I should have moved my other leg out and she should follow that leg in. But it's too early days for that at this stage with her. So kind of my bad, also kind of her bad, but it's not her fault, is it? It's mine, obviously. And some little unders, some middles, and some other bits of fun pieces, some sits, some downs as well. If the ground is not wet, she's happy to down. As she grows older and grows in confidence and she develops more water resistance, that will be fine. So then we came back home for lunchtime. So you can see I've got hat hair, and we're just going to work on some little bits of hand touches and some of the skills that we've been working on over the previous week. So looking back into last week, things that we were building up on were hand touches for minute position changes, and that's still based on larger movements because that's what builds up the drive and engagement. But then we'll start to make it much smaller little stippy steps forwards, and we're looking for that duration. So really solid nose plants in, and then looking for that little bit of longer duration. So if I'd lost her in one behaviour, then we can just have a party and a cuddle, but not that. So do you see how she sort of like went for my face, then went for my jumper? I'm no verbal negative. Now she does love to eat my hair. She's like a foal. This is what baby horses are like. So she's very like that in terms of just nibbly. So licking's okay, but biting is not okay. So she doesn't bite, but mouthing. So just reiterating on that. And then the evening session for us was working a little bit on the retrieve that we've been working to. We just introduced right at the end of the last session, only this time I'm using a ball, which is far more exciting and much easier to drop on the way back in. So I'm withholding a reward until she brings that ball back up onto the bed, and then she gets the reward. So really, really, really easy criteria for her. If it's not on the bed, there is no snacks. And so the retrieve builds by coming back up onto that. And then over the course of this week, and I think into next week, we'll start to make this bed into like a tiny mat that can then end up being sort of like in the palm of our hand or whatever we want to develop after that point. But the action here of building drive to come back to a handler with an object, that's the key. It's a habitual process and it's working really nicely. So just bringing her off of that, finishing up with some behaviours, working on a different object for a pivot. She would rather eat the frisbee in all fairness, but she did quite well ignoring that and coming onto it, stepping up onto it. And then just some middles with no food in the hand, just like we had last time. And this is a much better process for me. I drop way less snacks if I just hold the entire tub. I don't know why. I can't explain that. It is just the way it is. She's looking like a right beefcake in this video. It's funny because I'm like a week and a bit on, and she's more of like a lean string bean now. So amazing how the body changes, but really good hand targets there, head touches. She was like, I will eat the clicker. And it's like, no, you won't. But yeah, working on those hand touches, little simple ones, especially if I'm starting to lose her focus and engagement. And then we'll start to have some slightly bigger reward parties as well, just to have her kind of hooked back in. Perfect. So different mornings, morning time now, and I'm clearly alive, alert, awake and enthusiastic, and that's clearly how I'm feeling. So she should also be quite alive, alert, awake and enthusiastic this morning, because morning sessions with the puppies is usually where you're going to have like the most drive, the most energy, the most excitement, the most sort of focus in a way, but it can spill over into like overexcitement. So just on this occasion, working on some simple behaviours. I wanted a little bit of a better reverse back step up there. She seemed to be doing her middles, but but not going kind of all the way under. And then just to try and build a little bit more drive and handler engagement, I'm doing a runaway method. So she gets the food, she sees me, wait till she clocks me, and then we start to run backwards. And as long as she takes so long to eat a snack, so running backwards builds a lot of excitement. She's like, what are we doing? And you'll see how over the course of the next few clips, she actually, the next few sessions, her handler engagement improves a lot. Now, we're still doing all of our normal kind of like walking sessions and recall sessions. This is where I'm going to have a lump in my throat. But we did need to start to proof around other dogs. And the best one for us was always FinnFinn, who literally just ignored other dogs. And it's very, very steady potter about. He just sort of potters. Doesn't really go anywhere at any speed. And it was in this week period, in terms of like the 7-day period from the start of this, that we did lose Finn. So this is the last time, I think, that he actually appears in any clip. So we're just doing our normal loose lead walking outside, but FinnFinn is at the other side with Dan, or he's in front with Dan, or he's always behind at this stage, judging by where Ren was looking there. But what we're looking to build up at this stage is having another dog come out on a walk, but not walking like with me. So I'm not holding the other dog's lead. And what that can help to build is just a little bit more independence and a little bit more focus as well. So then also trying some recalls and making sure that Ren's making good choices to come with me as her handler rather than going to see the other dog. In this case, that's FinnFinn over there with Dan. And she did sort of have an idea, but then she came to me for a really good choice. And she continued to actually make really good choices. Finn obviously is quite boring in the nicest possible way, but that was a really good other nice choice there. So then just a few little bits, and there's a really good recall here where she was like running full pen and then came straight back into me. So that was really, really, really good. And that's exactly what I want to see. So if the dog's making a beeline, I'm off for something, can I recall off of that thing? And if I can, I know I'm doing something good. And then this is a split second moment of what we managed to capture on film of Alfie and Ren Bear actually having a play. So that was really nice to capture that on video, because I didn't think that we had that. It's hard to film stuff. And then obviously big morning, so she went for a nap. That was a lot of exercise for little legs. That evening I've gone, right? I've left, I'm off, see you, bye. I'm off to teach at the Guild of Photographers. So I've gone and Dan and Ren went to go and sit in the local town on a very busy traffic junction and just sat and basically watched the traffic. And Dan's just rewarding for eye contact back up from Ren. And then just sort of to build that handler engagement, a bit of desensitization, more socialization stuff. And then it was time for Dan to make the big trip up to Oz. And so this is me filming Dan's arrival, letting Ren Bear out the car. And he just parked right next to this massive digger behind the fence. And there's men shouting and banging posts in and poles and metal and all sorts. And she was just absolutely, she didn't even look. She didn't even make it even a look at that. So I'm really happy with that. And I just wanted to say hello, because at this stage, like, I've not seen her now overnight and I missed her. So Dan brought Bright, Ren and Alfie for the shooting workshop, which was on the Friday morning at the Guild's awards event. I actually had the big dog, so I'm not over here. I'm at the other side of this garden handling big dogs. And Dan had Ren Bear with half of the students. And so the students switched between us throughout and they were getting their own photographs. And from what they've said, and these clips which are from the students, the general consensus was that Ren did freaking amazing. The light was so bad on this day, you can't help it, workshop's a workshop, and the location was not ideal, but we were focusing on principles, not perfection. She did really well. As far as I know, everything went absolutely fine. I had to tell him to go and call it a day, because she was just carrying on, and I was like, no, she's done enough now. Let's let her go to bed, and we're going to focus on some other stuff with Bright. All of the dogs were, I would argue that workshop, my dogs behaved the best that they've ever behaved. They were just fab, right? I love them. So I'm not here. I'm still at the Guilds event for like another couple of days. Dan is here at home with Ren. So I've just had a quick look through these clips. I don't actually know exactly what Dan was specifically focusing on, but we're going to make some judgments on Dan's training. So if everybody grabs a cup of tea, some caffeinated beverage, some snacks, and that was a really good recall from the bottom of the paddock there. I nearly ran straight into Dan's legs. And let's see what they're going to be working on today. So, Dan, what have you got in the pot? Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. So this is that little bit of engagement work. So backing away from the dog with some food, and then you're kind of going away from them instead of towards them when you're rewarding. And then you can start to increase the speed and heavily reward. So again, it just generates that forward focus, that driving into the handler. And it's a really good game to play if you don't have their full attention. So here the dog is sniffing the floor, but what Dan's doing is he's done a recall, and then he will recall whilst reversing, if that makes any sense. So, and then he's got the toy. So he's going to try some toy play. I'm guessing he will do some retrieve work. So she's legged off with it. Dan's not going to go towards her. He's going to get her attention and run away. And then she's going to bring the toy back in for a game. So using the dog's prey drive against yourself, the more you come towards the dog, the more you'll instigate a game of chase. So they'll find it really fun to run off with the toy, whereas Dan's having a big game, and then I'm hoping he's going to let go and run away, and the dog wants the game to continue. So as long as you keep that engagement really high, you should end up with like a glue stick situation. And this is something that you'll see in week 7, I want to say, where we do this in a completely different environment that's quite busy and high pressure. So she's nicked off with the toy. Dan's not coming towards her necessarily. He's waiting for her to finish doing something, and then gets her attention, and she's brought the toy back. So he could have encouraged that a bit more by going even further backwards, but that was a really, 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 really nice piece of work there. Dan's still having a big game when the toy comes back, so next time it comes back faster. And then Dan went off into Beverly Market by himself, which he was briefed to go into a town and sit on a bench. And what I hadn't realised, or Dan, was just how busy this market was going to be. I mean, we should have really guessed. We don't get out a lot, so we don't know these things. But Beverly Market is a really busy one, and Dan's still working on, all of his timing and stuff, so we don't need any critique of those things. But what we are going to basically watch happen is Ren just sort of like looking at things, looking for a bit of reinforcement, looking for a bit of encouragement, and then she's still able to perform her basic behaviours, which is really good. And Dan's just basically just letting her sit in one place and eat snacks. And that's exactly what we wanted to achieve from that. So she's looking at things, but she's not necessarily sort of like lunging off or fixating on them. And then that's a really positive thing for us to achieve. So there's a dog coming up on the left. I don't know if Dan's clocked it, but they've kept their distance a little bit. Ren stayed really focused. That was amazing. That was really good. I'm actually dead impressed myself. A little Ren bear. Bags and things coming down next to her head height seem to still be quite interesting, so we might need to do some more work on that. But they did find their bench, and they're just basically feeding and watching the world go by. But when her eye contact is made with Dan, that's when he should be feeding at this stage, unless something is obviously worrying her, and then he can feed when she's looking away. So that's the protocol that we're working on. Remember that that's more of like a look at that thing. So she'll start to look at things, and then she'll go, oh, hang on a minute, I feel like if I'm fixated on something, I should look back. She's looking at a pigeon, I think. But that look back was when the reward happened, so then the next time the look back will happen even quicker, and that's exactly what should happen. So it's really difficult when you're in these situations to kind of keep your eyes on what you need to keep your eyes on. Dan wanted a coffee, and this was quite a stressful situation for her. It's a fairly tight strip on the market, so Dan's trying to just keep his eyes peeled left and right. It's exceptionally difficult to do when you're alone, but just trying to keep an eye on. You've got dogs going there, dogs blooming everywhere. The reason why we use Beverly is because it's a really, really, really dog-friendly town, whereas other ones around us are not. And the other reason is because it's so dog-friendly. Usually there's lots of dogs, but they're all fairly well adjusted, which makes it a lot easier for us to deal with. So people walking close by, people staring, people smiling at her, making eye contact, people saying, oh, such a good puppy. All those things are really good. And then to decompress, she always has some time where she can just have a little bit of a chill sniff out on the Beverly Westwood. It's called the Beverly Westwood. Basically, it's like a big open grass parkland that's like common space, so anybody can go and utilize that space, but there are roads going through it, so it's a really good idea to make sure that you're in full control. And they were having a big play, and I believe did some sort of like retrieve and recall. Dan's just picking up the lead to remind Renham, just make sure that she's not going off lead, but that's a really good start to reinforce that retrieve process. So at the moment, Dan's conditioning Ren to basically know that if she has a toy and she runs into him at full pelt, then Dan will help and play with that. So he's not running towards her, he's running away from her. He's always staying close by for the long line to make sure that he can get hold of her. And that builds with reinforcement. And again, because I'm not there, I'm still at the Gills event, probably partying, eating my pizza and brownie because there wasn't enough meals for me to eat at that point. Sad times. And also congratulating all of the MTOGs. These guys are back home doing whatever they're doing. So Dan enjoys doing more kind of recall, retrieve things because his timing's not super fantastic for precise behaviours. And so these guys are just doing some reinforcement work again. Dan's moving backwards and reinforcing for the dog coming towards him. So this is all really good basic bits that anybody can do with their dog to build engagement out and about. And this time Dan's using a different toy. So he's making sure that, again, big game, and he should let go and run away. And she should run back in with the toy. She's thinking about it. So he's just going to pick up the lead, give her a little tiny bit of contact, and then big game when the dog comes back in. So it's okay to do that. Please, good God, don't like pull your dog along by the lead. That's not the aim of the game here. But it can be helpful if the dog's on lead to just put a little bit of tension on, just to keep the direction of travel and the momentum going. Make sure that the game is really, really, really fun. And then you can go. So he's letting that lead go through his hand. So he's not like pulling on it. And then Dan was like, screw it. I am going to train a new trick, actually. I don't need Jess here to do that. And so Dan decided to teach Ren to start spins. So all of our dogs know left and right, helpful for when Dan's running them. So if Dan's running and they're out in front on harness and he needs to take a left turn or a right turn, really important that they all know their left and right so that they can take the right path as a group and not split off in all different directions. And then secondarily, the other important thing for them to know that for is for agility, but I don't tend to use left and right. I use two different commands, but not the point. Helpful anyway. So he's just starting by doing a spin. And then with the handler, and I don't think he would have added a verbal at this point, but he's just doing the spins and making sure she understands that. And then over time, we will go ahead and fade that handler, which you'll see over the coming sessions and also the coming weeks. I came home, first thing I did, literally been home half an hour, no, less than that, I think, just swapped cars and then went out to this football game. So there's loads of football happening, football as in actual legit football, you guys, over in North America, actual football, which is AKA soccer. So I got lynched for that, won't I? And then we were in the clubhouse, the football clubhouse, and she's just having a nibble on my arm, redirection. So just making sure she's going onto the correct toy, and then working on some leaves and rewards. And then what also happened was whilst we were in here, a lot of the little kids came in off of their football pitches. And so what happened when the kids came in is that there was a lot of kind of shouting, screeching, people running around. And so that was a lot of noise. Let me show you the noise. And so for her to still be able to focus in this environment is fantastic. We also had a lot of people sort of walking past the back of her, which can be a little bit unnerving. And so just working to make sure that she's actually happy in that environment, working through some perhaps little bits of worry that she has, and also being happy with people walking around the back of her, around the front of her, and food also being served in the location, and just working on just sort of like keeping our little brain in check. And it's a really sort of high stress situation. She's fine looking as long as she looks back, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But she did a really good job. And we were sat there with Dan's brother. So it was nice for her to meet him. So she's meeting some people here as well. There was other dogs in the clubhouse, and just really really good little trip out. We went out for very long. I did just say a nat for licking the side of the sofa. I don't want her to nibble on it necessarily, but just doing some little things, little position changes, little eyeball watches, rewarding focus on the handler. So I'm not rewarding here, but if she looks back, then I'll reward, and that's what the focus of the behavior is. So again, a little bit same old, just different place. Coming back home, working on some position work. And I could see at this stage we were going to maybe need a little bit more focus time on this one. So going back up from a down to a sit, you can tell she's grown. She's gone way more lanky in this one. So it's just helping a little bit more with her position switch, obviously dropping snacks on the floor. We should be expecting this at this stage, but working on some flats as well. So I'm just wanting a really quick flick for the flat, because being able to go from a sit to a flat is quite a big stretch. Going from a stand to a flat is also quite a big stretch, and going from a flat to a sit is actually quite hard on their muscles. So we don't do too many of those, just a couple, making sure that we can go walk backwards just as well as we can walk forwards. And so we're building upon some little bits of that, and then we'll go into reinforcing some of the stuff that we've already been working on. So we'll start with just running into a middle. Still needing a little bit of assistance with the backward steps, but she is patterning quite well now, like the spin into it almost. And then looking at working with some hand touches, and I realize I'm not really sat the right way around here, so I'll just reposition myself. And you'll start to see with this one, look at how poor her first nose touch is. So I don't reward the rubbish one, but the second tap, that was just a bit pathetic. However, because I know that her frustration threshold is quite low, I'm going to be making sure that she can have some easy wins. But then this is even more pathetic. So flat no, getting the reward for that. And so I have to have the criteria in my head of what I'm happy to accept. And when I'm happy to accept that, we can move forwards. Because her frustration threshold is quite low, what you'll see is we'll end with disengagement. She'll go and self-reward on something else, like getting to the snack pot, which she knows she's not supposed to get, and then she'll shout at me for it. And that's things that she knows what she's actually supposed to do, because there's a hand there and she touches it. She's just testing. She's sort of pushing things to see, as you know, I want this a little bit easier. Can we make it easier? Can we do it differently? But then watch her feet. And actually at this stage, she did really well. So I said, and she didn't pick up anything until I gave her something to eat. And actually, the self-control and restraint showed on that was really great. So I was like, do you know what, screw it. Let's change our training session today to watch snacks falling from the sky and not eating them. Because not when, this isn't for use like when I permanently always drop my snacks. It's more for a case where if I don't want her to eat something, can I say and call her off of it before she goes to get it? So is our negative. That basically means that this is a flat no-go area. If I say oops, it's just wrong choice, try a different choice. So we're looking for a different thing. And so an would be no, don't eat that. And it's really important for emergency scenario. So let's say that there is some suspicious powder on the floor in the city centre at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning when we go for a photo shoot. If she goes to stick her face near it and I only see it the last second, if I can say and make sure she doesn't go and eat it, probably going to be better than the alternative. Then we'll do some more little bits of retrieve. So I just dropped the ball and then I've just said bring, and she's got to bring it. So the commands that we're using here is basically go get it and then bring. And then she gets the reward. So those are the two. If she loses the ball, then I'll say, go find your ball, and all the dogs know that command. Free time, cuddle time, play time with Dan, and then another training session, this time with me in the studio. So I'm just letting her out of the crate. And and crate manners is really good. She's just woken up from a nap. So I'm hoping that we've got some energy here and we're going to be pretty good. So this will be, I would imagine, Monday morning. I would say this would be like a Monday morning. I think this is Monday morning vibes for me. And what I'm looking for is just reinforcing that behavior that Dan started to teach. So I'm flicking my arm up in the air a little bit more instead of doing the lure, and then switch on to a development of the retrieve game. So the retrieve is for the ball to be on the mat, which in this case is a piece of folded vet bed, and then we'll again extend it further. So she just has to bring the ball back to the mat and not get distracted or stuck in Dan's chair legs from his office chair. And if she gets a little bit distracted, I just can shake a tub, then go get it, and then bring it, and then delivery of the food on the mat. The tennis ball is more exciting than the other objects that we've worked with because it's a squeaky one. I've reclaimed the ball, she gets extra snacks, and then she gets the ball straight back. Perfect. So she knows the game's happening in here. And then we did our second ever solo photo shoot, this time with me on the pink. I really enjoyed this set. This is basically to make sure that I'm keeping consistent with my goals of photographing her once per calendar week. So this is actually in the next calendar week, but we're still in week 6 of Ren, if that makes any sense. So this is a 3-light setup. Again, it's covered in Studio Boot Camp in terms of how the whole setup is constructed and how we're shooting it. And it's the same setup, realistically speaking, as Ren's photo shoot from week 1, but just with one of my favorite backdrop colors. It's a really, really, really rich crimson. Photographed slightly more red than you can see in this shot, but you can see that sit and wait is fine. She's not dropping into a down. She's holding that really nicely, and the movements that we did from the previous solo photo shoot are still true and correct today. She did go and find Dan's football boot, so I thought I'd leave that clip in. So after we'd got her back from that, she's eating her snacks, and then when we throw the snacks out on the paper backdrop, it makes a very different noise to how the snacks sound and how the backdrop sounds on the other one. So if she touches the backdrop, that noise then created a zoomy scenario. Which was really funny. But this is the first time I've been able to really, really, really easily stop her and put her in a stand wait to take some photographs, shaking that little tub of snacks. All these things you've seen build up in random little steps over the weeks, and it's just putting them together in a way that makes it easy for photography. And then Dan headed out to go to a local playing field. Playing fields, I find, are one of the best locations to do basic training because they're quite wide open spaces with little distractions. So you can see lots of distractions before they become a problem, and they're quite boring because the grass is cut, it's not long grass. So you can do lots and lots and lots of recalls, which is what Dan's working on. Oh, that was a super little recall finisher, bless her. And then going through into also introducing some retrieves. So those are the things that Dan has been working on whilst I've been off running away. But the reason why Dan's doing this now is because that pink photo shoot was literally a few hours before we unfortunately lost Finn. And so I'm not in a mental state to be able to do anything really at this stage. So Dan took her up to the playing field because this is his version of therapy, and I am hiding in a hole doing something creative like retouching FinnFinn's picture or creating Finn's story, and these guys are working on their engagement. So it worked out really well that Dan could channel his energy into doing this, and then this is my first training session with Ren, which is the following morning. So I just needed a little bit of time. I'm still basically in my pajamas at this stage, and you can see that Ren's got her morning energy. So this is good morning energy from Ren, and she's giving me lots and lots and lots of focused attention. She's trying really hard. She's trying to make the right choice. That I rewarded then, not because it was a perfect position, but because she took a step back. And then we just worked on a little bit of an escalation of the retrieve behavior to bring it back onto a much smaller object, and also hopefully try and not steal the mat that I'd put in, which is literally a very small microfiber dusting cloth, cleaning cloth type thing. And she did really, really, really well with this. It's a much harder object because it's so small, but bringing it back onto that is quite a small target for her. And she actually did really, really well, but bringing it back onto that and then just building on that retrieve a little little bit more. And then coming back to finish a little bit with some more heel work. There really wasn't many training sessions, obviously because of what happened and because I was away quite a lot. But this is quite a good synopsis of this week. I'm just working on good positioning for her. And for me, remember, you guys, she's never going to do competitive obedience, anything to do with competitive heel work. So I don't need her heel work to be perfect, but I do want it to be nice. And for me, this is really nice. I'm very, very happy with how it is now. How her back end wraps around me a little bit more because of that focus work that we've been doing on the rear pivot. That's exactly what I wanted to achieve from working on that behavior. And I'm so pleased with how it's come along with just 1 week. So it's just been essentially, it's just a little bit over 1 week really, for her to start developing that, and then working on some nose touches, building that duration again, normal stuff, keeping that engagement, changing hands this time. So this is the first time that I'm really switching hand to hand. And by switching hand to hand, we get that shoulder rotation focus and that hand focus moving around, which is exactly what I want to achieve. And to be honest, all I want to do is just give her a cuddle because I'm still feeling super emotional at this stage. We'll only be on the end of Tuesday. So it's just still the next day. And I'm really, really happy with her for this week. She tried so hard given everything that had happened. And I think she knew, I'm not 100%, and goodness me, watching us having that little snuggle in her, trying to maybe eat my hair clip, but also my hair at the same time, is super sad, but really sweet. So that was REM week 6, and I'm excited to show you what happened next. Dan did do one more training session, but literally this is all we've got from it. I don't know what happened with Dan's videography skills, but as you can see, actually Ren just had a party for most of it, but she did leave that when asked, so win some. See you next time.